Welcome back. The Friends of the Log Cabin Association is mourning the death of its founder and board president. John Gebhardt passed away in February at the age of 78. He founded the Friends of the Log Cabin Association back in 2007 and has served as the board president since then. Board Vice President Joe Newkirk says they will do their best to continue John's legacy.
John was a retired Air Force colonel. He was very efficient. He was very punctual. He was very organized. He was a low-keyed person who didn't put a lot of emphasis on his own importance. I think his most enthusiasm was with this village and carrying on what he had envisioned as a very noble work.
The events that had been planned before Gebhardt's passing are still in place, including the school tours during Dogwood Weekend, an open house next month, and their 17th annual Frontier Settlement Day later this year.